Hey everybody, welcome to the Insight Cafe. I'm your host, Nikon Gormley, and today I have a really special guest all the way from the UK, Dr. Aaron Turner. And before we dive in, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Aaron Turner, and then we're going to kick it off. So, Dr. Aaron Turner is the founder of One Thought, and he's the former president of the 3P Global Community. And before we go into ask him about his story and how he got here, I'm going to give you a little introduction about today's topic. So, something that's really come up a lot in my work and I've been noticing people talk about is presence. And usually, when people talk about presence, especially in leadership or self development, it's often framed as something to build, something you have to practice through body language, mindfulness, calm tone, or self awareness. And it's treated as a skill, a way to appear more confident, focused, or even authentic. And today's conversation is looking at where presence really comes from and how does it really work so we can cultivate more of it in our work. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Aaron Turner.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Nikon.
Thank you. I'm really excited about today's conversation because it's this topic has come up so much in my work. It's something leaders have there's always asking like, how do I have more presence? What's the secret? What do I do? And before we dive into that, I wanted to ask you, like, what's your story? How did you get here? How did you become interested in working with people? Because I know you work through One Thought, you work with global leaders in all sorts of different fields, including even military as well. So I'd love to hear your story.
Well, yeah. My story, the reason I'm doing this kind of work, Nikon, is because I really found something that's profoundly useful that isn't really talked about. So I kind of felt compelled to get into this work. So my background was I was an academic. I was a researcher at a UK university in a center for the study of health, sickness, and disablement. And I came across this understanding of the mind. The way I talk about it is a state of mind. And it wasn't the kind of thing I was normally interested in, but I was asked to do some research around it. And what I discovered through this research was that these ideas were a radical departure from existing psychology. So much so that all the various psychologies that look so different, when you compared them to this new understanding, they all looked the same because they shared certain fundamental assumptions. And I knew as an academic that if you have a new understanding, it opens up new possibilities. And so I got curious and I found that that was the case, that this understanding opened up new possibilities for clarity, for well being, independent of circumstance, without any techniques. And after a few years of living my life kind of, you know, without these limitations and with this enabled clarity of mind, I realized that nobody else in the world understood it either. So that's when I changed tack and I went to do an internship because I wanted to share this understanding more widely. And that's how I got involved in the more business side of it because I started off as a counselor with individuals and couples. But it's when we got asked to work in businesses, this link between people's state of mind and everything else that happens in a business got illuminated. It's almost like, when they give people radioactive liquid and they swallow it and they can see what happens in the body when they drink the liquid, where does it go? What does it do? Well, when we worked in companies, we started to see that there was a link between people's state of mind and everything: communication, profits, revenue, attrition, client relationships. I mean, there was this web that people's state of mind affected, and when I started to see that, I was obsessed. So I'm kind of obsessed with unearthing these links and helping businesses discover there's so much more potential to change things if you go to the state of mind. If you're dealing in the single state of mind, your options are so limited. But if you're willing to change a state of mind, all sorts of other options open up. So it's kind of a mission and a fascination that brought me here, Nikon.
Oh, that's wonderful. And because of your obsession and fascination, now I am obsessed. And if I could say on behalf of everybody, thank you for your work and your obsession because you've opened the door for everybody else who is also interested in unleashing that potential for people through a simple paradigm shift in understanding. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. I mean, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah.
Brilliant. So if you're up for it, I'd love to get your perspective on presence. So for context, What's your definition of presence?
Well, my definition of presence is that people's experience is of the moment that they're in, that it's
Mm,
an undistracted state in which people's mind is completely free or relatively completely free to take in what's around them, that they have a mental bandwidth that can both take in what's around them and also have more space for kind of their own clearer thoughts within them. So I would say that presence is a less distracted mental bandwidth that allows us to be more aware of what's happening internally, but also more aware of what's happening in and around us.
thank you for sharing. That sounds like a great place to be, especially if you're leading an organization or you're trying to build or create a life, or even just everyday living. That sounds like an amazing state of mind to be in.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way, presence is one dimension of what I would call a clearer state of mind.
Mm,
And as you're saying, like presence has all these qualities. And one of the interesting things, Nikon, is that when people are present, they also have a richer sense of comfort and ease and quality of well-being, which people don't appreciate. People think that presence would be neutral, but if you look at it, when people's minds are less distracted and they feel more present, they also tend to have a richer experience, a more fulfilling experience. So this link between clarity and well-being is one that's not really talked about a lot, but you see it when people are present. They tend to also be more engaged, more satisfied, more content, more inspired, more energized. There are all these other qualities to the state of mind in which we have presence.
what you just described is everything all my clients or everybody I knows who is interested in having a great life wants, a
Yeah.
richer experience, being more aware, more self-present. And right now in popular mainstream personal development, there I've seen it's like even I can read it, that's defined as you said, let me read it, is it's often framed as something to build, as something to develop. And as
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about, it doesn't feel that way. I would
Yeah.
love for you if you could speak more to that. For like presence as something to build, like, oh, if I could just learn how to be more present,
Yes.
or that will create more presence versus it what you're talking about seems to me as something that's uncovered or
Yes.
discovered.
Yeah. I mean, this is fascinating because you know how I said this new understanding
Mm,
brought a lot of potential. Well, one of the aspects of it is really starting to appreciate the nature of a clearer, more neutral mind, which is very different from the understandings that have gone before, which is because people don't feel much presence, they feel like that's somewhere they need to get to, like it's a skill. Whereas what I've observed and what I think we've discovered is that presence is a default. It's like if you dunk someone in ice cold water, they come out present.
mm.
And the reason is it's very distracting being frozen.
Is is that why people like there's a period of time where ice baths were like everything, were
Yeah,
all the rage. Is
yeah.
that why? Just because
Oh,
more
totally.
present.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Because if you get a shock, it interrupts your control of your thought process. And people don't realize that presence is the experience that's underneath our thought process. And
Mm,
that's why you can't get there because every thought or process you action to get there takes you further away. And that's why people think it's difficult because they're trying really hard and they're not finding it. So instead of concluding, oh, I'm trying the wrong way, they're like, oh, this must be tougher than I thought. And they double down.
right. They instead of a quick dunk in ice bath, I need to do 2 minutes and then 3 minutes and then it'll stick, right? But only to find that the moment they have more thinking about their work, then they're back in that
Yeah.
in a difficult state of mind. So something you said is presence is a default state of mind. I'd love for you to say more about that because it goes against mainstream personal development. Instead of something to build, it's something that's built in already. And then my mind goes to, well, how do I get more of that, Aaron? Like, how do I get
Yeah.
more of this default
Yeah.
state?
Yeah. Well, what I've been seeing recently, Nikon, which was such a helpful insight to me, is that before we start using it,
Mm,
our mind has a nature,
mm,
right? Like before you turn on, you get your cell phone. Before you turn it on, it has a nature. It's built a certain way before you turn it on. And when you turn it on and you start adding apps and you put whatever you want to put on it, before that it has a nature. And our mind has a nature before we start using it. And that's something that people don't really think about. Now, that nature is our mind at its unrestricted, crystallized, pristine best. That's why when people are at their best, they talk about a flow state. They don't talk about a thinking state. Because when our mind is in its pristine state, it operates without restriction, right? As soon as you put a thought on it, that thought, this is the word to say it. Before you put a thought on it, our thought is just operating optimally. And presence is a symptom of that. So in a way, it's almost like a phone. Like if your phone starts getting slow, you need to delete apps.
yeah.
Right. So it really is that functional memory. It's that operating memory. It's like our mind is amazing, and it functions more effectively with free operating memory. But when we put thought in there, like we as adults are always thinking, they have so many thoughts banked. So they're further and further away from the mind just operating in an unrestricted, purer way. Right. So if you want more presence, you want more clarity, you want more well-being, all the things your clients want, you want to go back before you started thinking, before you started trying, before you started believing like, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and this is good and this is bad. You want to go back in a way you want to do a full a full reboot, which people think, oh well, let me do that. But actually, what they don't realize, which is the second part, sorry if I'm going on too much,
No, keep
is
going.
that the only thing that gets in the way of our mind operating in this purer way is that we start putting energy into our own thought,
Mm.
right? If you don't put energy into your own thought, that thought just purely operates by the nature of the mind, right? And that's presence. So you could see like the opposite of presence is distraction.
Wow. The opposite of presence is distraction.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And the beauty of presence is when people think, well, what's distraction? They eliminate all the thoughts they're not interested in.
Mm.
But when it comes to present, even the thoughts you're interested in are a distraction. That's why present's such a beautiful marker of whether your mind's clear, because you could be thinking about something you think is really important and vital, but you won't be present while you're thinking about it because you're thinking. So, in
Mm.
terms of presence, thinking is a distraction, thought is a distraction.
Right. And just for clarity, is you're not saying thinking is bad because it sounds like what you're talking about is it's a very natural thing.
Yeah, totally. But
And
it's the way we relate to. Sorry, Nikon, you
yeah,
go ahead.
keep going, keep going. So
Well,
you
I
were
was just
saying it's how we relate to thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can have thought. That's why people talk about a flow state where you just have a flow of thought. And that's very different to being distracted by your thought.
Hmm. So you could have just thinking happening, but then you're not distracted by it because you're focused on right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So what occurs to me is that from my original question is really being more in presence is a lot more about being less distracted.
Yeah. And having a much higher bar for what you consider being distracted.
Please say more of that. I just like what the way that sounded.
Well, the less willing you are to get distracted by what happens in your mind, by your own
Mm,
thought, you'll end up being more present,
mm,
right? And it's funny because we were talking about this earlier, Nikon, but it's another example of exactly this same mental dynamic is listening,
mm.
right? What I consider listening is a form of presence. In other words, you can't take anything in if you're doing your own thinking. Listening and presence are exactly the same. They're two different ways of talking about the same thing.
Can I tell my favorite Aaron Turner listening story?
Yes, I didn't know that
We
more than
there
one.
there is one. We were in Prague at the World Listening Conference, and we were in the front row. And I was sitting in the middle, and you were sitting to my left. And I remember sitting there, and I just felt this wave of calm kind of coming, like approach, like it was hitting my left face, the left side of my face. I was like, "What is that?" And I turned, and it's Aaron Turner. It's you. And you were just sitting there listening to the speaker. And I thought, "Oh, okay, Aaron. I'm gonna go say hi to." I made a mental. I'm gonna go say hi to Aaron. And sure enough, as the speaker's going on, I'm fidgeting in my seat. I'm picking up my phone. I'm doing this and that. And I turn over, and you didn't move. You were still in the same position. And like your listening made me self-conscious of my listening. So I was like, I'm gonna try and sit. Maybe it's the way Aaron's sitting. So I'm trying to sit like that. Like, no. And then I'll never forget it. I walked over after the talk and I said, Aaron, how do you listen so like that? Like you look so still. And you said you without missing a beat, you said, I like the way it feels to listen. So I listened.
Mm,
And I thought, oh. I never thought about it like that before, that the feeling of listening was just a nice place to be.
mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a nice way of talking about presence too, Nikon, because all you have to do to listen is avoid being tempted to get distracted by your own thoughts.
You know what? I just realized just now that that's what I felt was your presence, the calm presence that was come like what it made me turn because it was so noticeable. Like,
Mm.
what is this? I was like, oh, it's Aaron listening. And that was presence, effortless presence. Yeah.
Effortless presence. And people don't realize, I mean, it's such an amazing thing that presence is effortless.
Mm.
Like if we're not doing anything with our minds, there's nowhere else to go but presence. There's
Do
nowhere
you
else.
I love that. There's nowhere else to go but presence in a world that can feel so busy with thinking and distraction, to know that there really is nowhere else to go but presence.
Yeah.
Do you, if I may ask, do you remember the first time you started to see this for yourself? And what was that like? And how did that change things for you?
It's so funny. I think the first time that I saw this for myself, like I'd
Yeah.
experienced it the first time I saw it. This is so funny. So when at that time, Nikon, I was an overthinker in everybody else's mind except my own. So if you said to me, Aaron, you think too much, I literally couldn't understand what you were saying because I thought that the way that you got clarity and the way that you figured things out and the way that you did a good job in life was by thinking and figuring things out. So I was deliberately thinking every minute of the day. And if they made a 25-hour day, I would have thought an extra hour. Right. And I was just in the habit of it. But I was listening to these people talking about what we've been talking about, that, thought is not necessarily helpful, and that actually clarity of mind is more helpful. And you can't get there by thinking because it's a more neutral, uncluttered experience of the mind that's already there. And this thing popped into my head where it was like, oh, we're talking about leaving your mind alone,
Mm.
just leaving it alone. Like, maybe some of your listeners have a job, and when they go for lunch, you leave your job alone. You're out for lunch. And I had this, and I thought, wow, I could do that. Like it suddenly occurred to me, leaving your mind alone doesn't take any effort. It's actually like taking a break. And for some reason, that feeling of leaving it alone, like dropping it, just putting it aside, vacating it, really had a useful feeling for me. And so I tried it. And when I left my mind alone, as opposed to nothing happening, this kind of richer feeling welled up. And then this experience of the moment I kind of got more perceptive and appreciative of what was around me. And I got really into leaving my mind alone. And I can remember I was in Lacona and I was living in London, and it's a long flight from Seattle to London. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to get on the flight because I can just sit there and do nothing and feel this way for 10 hours.
Yeah. It, you know, I have I think you just confirmed a fascinating phenomenon I discovered in myself is that when I take a break, when I'm on vacation, I'm way more productive.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? I'm not even trying. It's like, oh, because I'm giving my mind a break, and so there's just more space for me to get things done and things come through.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm trying to bring into the world of work is, in the name of doing a good job, people are wasting so much time and energy thinking when it's not helping. Compared to how productive we are when our minds are free, this belief in thinking as a way of getting things done is because it causes stress and pain and agitation. So it takes away from your well-being, and you don't get things done more easily as a result. So you're paying a price and you're getting nothing for it.
Oh, I love that. You're paying a price of your time and attention, and you're getting nothing for it. And to me, especially in because to me, one of the most valuable things we have is our time and attention because we can't get it back. And
Mm.
no no amount of money can buy back a minute.
No, so true.
Right. And to know that, oh, you're spending all that really your most valuable resource on things that you're getting no return on is enlightening.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And we said today we might be myth busting. Well, the idea that it's useful and responsible to have things on your mind is a big is a really big problem myth.
Speaking of myth busting, if you're up for it, I'd like to. I made a list of popular ways people have come up to try and acquire more presence. So I'll read them out, and then
Okay,
we'll get your take on it. Okay.
okay,
All right.
okay.
So here are the popular mainstream personal development ways to have more presence. So
Yeah,
number one, control your body language. So if I stand tall and I make eye contact and slow my gestures, I'll look more confident. If I mirror what the other person is doing, they'll feel more comfortable. And the assumption is that it's something that I can create through physical cues.
yes, yeah. Well, I always like these approaches that are kind of fake it till you make it type of approaches,
Yeah.
because it just shows how little understanding we have of our own freedom of mind, our own ability to not get distracted by our own thoughts. And we're so alienated from our ability to relate to our own thoughts in the way we want to, that we have these convoluted ways. So I got to get to my way of thinking by changing my behavior. I mean, it seems like such a convoluted way of trying to control myself when I could just go straight to, well, do I want to be distracted by this thought or not? Just start there. But it just
Hey.
shows how little we understand our relationship to thought. So we're approaching it late. It's like, wag the dog's tail, it'll get happier.
I love it. Well, every time the dog's happy, wags up, I just wag his tail for him. This should work. I'm gonna use that from now on. That's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. You need to manage your mind. Focus on your breathing. Practice mindfulness or meditation.
Yes.
Visualize calm or confidence before big moments or big meetings. And the assumption
Yes.
here is presence comes from managing my thoughts and emotions. Into
Yes.
if I can just beat myself into stillness, I should have more presence.
Yeah. Well, this one's an interesting one, Nikon, because it will help.
Mm,
So if you concentrate on your breathing, or you concentrate on a feeling, or in that way, you will be more present, because in order to do that, you have to ignore the 25 other things you were thinking before you did that,
mm,
right? So relatively speaking, you will get more present. However, If what we're saying is right, that presence is just our mind without distraction, you will never get fully present by being mindful because you're being mindful by concentrating on something. So, in my mind, that kind of mindfulness is the least counterproductive form of distraction. It's the healthiest form of distraction to get present by concentrating on one thing. But to get really present, you got to be concentrating on no things.
Uh, uh, the Sin Sin Ming comes to mind, where there's a famous line that says, "You don't need to seek the truth, only cease to cherish opinions." And the theme of that is stop trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's really nice about what we're talking about is we're really asking people to consider that they could have faith in the nature of our mind, the nature of our consciousness, the nature of our thought. And if you're willing to do that, there's nothing to manage because in its default state, it operates it operates optimally, just like the body. So people don't it's a real like sometimes it might feel like a trust fall, but if there is something to have faith in the essence of human consciousness and in human mind, in the very nature of it all, then that would be something worth finding out because it would save you a lot of trying to manage and mitigate and control.
I I have a real life story about that if you're keen to hear
Great.
it.
Oh, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear it. Yeah.
My wife's a pilot, a commercial airline pilot, and I get lots of great stories about the inner workings of pilots and planes. So I learned that in a commercial airplane, the radar will tell you the cloud situation. So for context, clouds are bad because there's turbulence and which I thought a plane is heavier than a cloud, but she said no, if you're going that fast, clouds are just trouble because you can't see, things like that. So even though the radar says the clouds are clear to go, or the next part is clear to go through, pilots still need to make a judgment call whether the clouds are safe to go through or go around it. And often pilots will rely on their inner knowing of, oh, something feels off about this cloud. We're going to go around it. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so cool that despite today's latest and latest technology of radar,
Mm-hmm.
passengers, we rely on pilots to have a clear mind in flying planes.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. It's very cool. It's very cool.
All right, next one. Prepare and perform. You need to have more presence. You need to rehearse key talking points, practice active listening techniques, use grounding rituals before meetings or presentation. The assumption here is presence is a skill you can train through repetition and control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, as in terms of what we've been saying, that's complete opposite of
Yeah.
my, my observations and understanding. I remember I was in a group once and I was really saying, look, presence is the way we are when we're not distracted. Like if we let our attachment to our thought go and we don't put energy into our own thinking, we're present naturally. It's a default state. It's a it's a before mental activity state. And they asked me, well, how do you do how do you do that? And we had this really interesting conversation where I was trying to get across it's completely nonsensical to see how you do that because it's already there. It's already there. It's almost like if someone's talking to you really quietly and you're saying to them, I can't hear you. Can you speak up a bit? I can't hear you. And you're telling them you can't hear them so much that you can't hear them. But if you want to hear them, you just got to be quiet and then you'll hear them.
I I for one as a former similar to you, you did Aikido
Yes.
in your in a previous life. I was a
Yes.
take professional Taekwondo player and actually our stories relate because I think in my 20s and I took jobs that would give you more time so I could do more Taekwondo. That was it. Like and and in the earlier part of that, before I came across the principles, a big thing was visualization, and I would visualize the shit out of every match. Like, and I would do this, and that do this, and I would wear the gold medal, and I would win. And it would always go wrong because the opponents would never do the things that I visualized they were gonna do.
Uh,
And
yeah,
I would go like, wait, this was not a part of the visualization. Error, crash, And then I remember my best Taekwondo performance happened when I stopped when I let my mind alone and just like, you know what, I'm just gonna enjoy the game. Like I really like it. And then boom.
yeah. And you know what's really interesting, Nikon, is I've all the business groups I work with, most people have a story like that,
Yeah.
where despite their belief that you need drive and intensity and visualization, the best came out when they were just more at ease.
Yeah.
And I could tell stories about that. I could tell stories about that all day. Like I I was at a football stadium doing the tour, and they had a screen, and they had this, what the star striker of this Premiership team was on the video, and they were interviewing him. They said, well, how do you psych yourself up for a game? And he was like, well, it's really funny because there are lots of games where I really get psyched up and I'm like, I'm gonna score, I'm gonna go out there, I'm really intense, and usually it just doesn't happen. But it's the games where you're not thinking about it and just go out there and see what happens that you end up scoring a hat
Yeah.
trick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people think it's weird, even though that's always the pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Always the pattern.
Yeah.
But people think it's weird because it doesn't fit our conception.
Mm.
That's why the myth busting is so important, because we have the qualities embedded, but they're covered over by our idea that we need to somehow bring them out or get them going, or, you know.
Yeah, there needs to be like a Eye of the Tiger playing, and then I gotta hut, from like
Yeah.
Rocky, and then
Yeah.
I need and then which brings me to the next myth is a popular thing is you need to curate your energy. You often hear you need to raise your vibration or frequency, do visualization, practice gratitude, or yell affirmations in the mirror. And you need to clear negative energy or stress before showing up. And the assumption is presence is a state you can manufacture by changing how you feel.
Yeah. When there's also another myth in there too, that negative thoughts are necessarily problematic.
Yeah,
Also not true. In other words, one of the problems with finding presence is that we over respect negative thought. And so we get distracted by it, we get obsessed by it. And actually, we've learned that negative thought isn't negative if you just don't worry about it. Kind of runs its own course and doesn't really affect us.
right.
Uh,
There was even a TED talk about it that the way you relate to stress is more important than stress itself. Because if you think stress is a bad thing, it just makes it worse. If if you said if we have a lot less respect for negative thought, then it's like a passing thing.
yeah, exactly. And the other thing about this energy thing is, and people don't believe it, even though it is their experience, is that our system, our mind, defaults to the most effective energy you can have. And now your listeners can fact check this, but my understanding is that when people are really not distracted by thought, when their minds are really in neutral, they have a different kind of brainwave that's associated with qualities that we don't have when we're analyzing and thinking and distracted. And so I also, several years ago, Nikon, I was reading a psychology magazine, and they had this. They did brain mapping of eureka moments, and basically what they said is when people aren't analyzing, you get full brain coordinated firing. That
Wow.
the brain, the system does that. But when you're analyzing, it interrupts it, and you get localized brain firing,
Oh, wow.
which is kind of what we're talking about. It's like, it's really funny to me that we don't feel like we need to optimize the way our bodies function. We kind of trust that.
Yeah.
But somehow when it comes to the mind, we think well, maybe it works different, that the mind's not trustworthy. The body, yeah, that intelligence.
Yeah.
Well, why are we not willing to consider it's the same intelligence, only in the mind, it's not restricted by physical processes.
So there's a premise in there that, oh, I trust the body's intelligence, but I don't trust the psychological
Yeah,
spiritual intelligence.
yeah,
I never saw it that way before. And I could see how that's the problem because if I don't trust it, I want to mess with it. I want to control it. I want to
yeah,
wrestle it to the ground.
yeah. We want to be, we're like psycho spiritual hypochondriacs.
Yeah. Psycho spiritual hypochondriac negative thought. Yeah.
I wonder if I'm okay. What should I do about it?
Yeah, what should I do about it? Like, yeah, yeah. Okay, there's another one. Be more self-aware. Notice your impact on others. Stay conscious of your tone and timing. Read the room and adapt. So the assumption here is presence depends on the constant self-monitoring and
Yeah.
adjustment.
Well, you know what's occurring to me listening to this list now that we've done a few, Nikon, is they sound like reverse engineering. They sound like observations of the qualities of a present mind,
Mm,
higher energy, more awareness,
mm.
more sensitivity to others, to ourselves, to those around. And instead of considering those as symptoms of an unencumbered state, the assumption is, oh, if you do those things, you'll be in that state.
Yeah.
But that's not true. I mean, yeah, I'll tell you what comes to mind, which is a little bit of a tangent. But if you listen to an amazing comedian, you can tell the joke they told, but it doesn't make you an amazing comedian.
I I was thinking the exact same thing. For me, I have sports references, like Taekwondo
Yeah,
references, like, oh, you can kick the exact same way the Olympic gold medalist, but it's not going to make you an Olympic gold medalist,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Because like with all of those, there's the flow, the timing, the
yeah,
sensitivity.
yeah, yeah,
These are all functions of a state. So, like when I've worked with athletes, their performance varies wildly based on their state. They have the same skill, strength, experience, strategy, commitment, drive.
mm,
But when our minds are free, like I even worked with a runner once. Oh, this is the,
yeah,
or driving a car drivers, that when our mind's free, just everything works quicker and better without trying.
yeah.
But you can't get that to happen because that's when you get in your head about it and everything goes to hell.
You know, I was talking to my wife and I realized all the things that have to go right for a commercial airline plane to take off and land safely. And I
Yeah.
realized I could never be a pilot because I would overthink the shit out of it. Did the engineer wake up on time and check my tires? Did this happen? Is like I would just hypochondriac it. And pilots just they trust and they have a sense that, oh, everybody's done their job and this plane is safe for takeoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your story about athletes, like that was totally me. In good states of mind, it was a good day. It was a good day. And then I noticed that the more higher level I got, the more thinking I would have, like, oh, if I win this, this means, oh, this is my ticket to the national team. And like my performance, you could see a direct correlation. And then it was only when I was almost retiring that I had those moments like, you know what, I think I'm just gonna enjoy the game. I'm probably like I don't have much time left to play. I'm just gonna enjoy it. Perform. I was playing better than I did when I was
Yeah.
like early 20s. Yeah.
Yeah. In when we talk about this with businesses, sometimes the misinterpretation is people say, "Oh, well, so are you saying you don't need to prepare? Are you saying you don't need skills? Are you saying you don't need knowledge?" And for me, it's like, no, we're not saying that. We're saying that that alone will not do it.
Mm,
Even if you prepared, even if you're the most knowledgeable and skilled person in your field, you can wildly underperform in the wrong state of mind.
yes.
And given your level of skill, given your level of experience, given your level of knowledge, you will be at your best if your mind is free to operate how it operates best. And that doesn't require us to be thinking and distracted because it's built that way. You know? I think.
But to me, and it seems to me also that the more you know where to look to find presence, the easier it is to tap into it. Or like you said, recognize when you're off. Like, oh, I'm totally caught up right now. I'm distracted. I'm frustrated. Things aren't funny anymore. Oh, I'm off. I'm
Mm.
off my game.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
then presence becomes less about something to get to and just something to notice that when you're not in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, starting to appreciate what it feels like to leave my mind alone, to let go of my attachment or my interest in what I'm thinking, that was a really useful feeling. It's like putting the car into neutral. That I was already doing that at times, but it was unconscious. So that that seeing what that feels like, so that I could let myself go in that direction, was for me was really helpful.
I'm thinking as someone who maybe from the perspective of not being used to leaving their mind on neutral. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm just gonna say it, it's my whole life my mind has looked like the most compelling thing. Every thought, every color, every shade. And then is it really that simple? This all of a sudden, oh, neutral. Like what might help someone who wants to have a more neutral relationship to their thinking?
Well, there's two things I think. One is being willing to consider that it's us who take an interest in what we're thinking.
Fair.
So we have complete freedom to drop it, to drop that interest in our thinking. It might not feel like it, you might not think that, but just being willing to consider, oh, yeah, every thought's a passing thought until I take an interest in it, right? And then the second part is just to get curious about, well, what would it feel like to, what would it feel? I mean, there's several ways you could go about it, but one would be, well, like, what would it feel like to leave a thought alone? What does it feel like to leave a thought alone? The other
Mm,
way you could look at it is start to see what it feels like to get wrapped up in a thought.
right.
Or
And
what does it feel
uh,
like to lean in?
right. So what would it feel like to leave a thought alone? Just and I'd love the willingness to consider.
Mhm.
Like I'm not asking you to change your whole life. I'm just asking you for your willingness to consider this. And just so people know that, like, do you still get caught up in thinking, or is it like do you always walk on water?
Oh, no, no. I only walk on water in my spare time. No, no. The beauty of what we're talking about is that, we're living so close. I mean, we're living out of our mind,
Mm,
so we're so close to it that I think it's completely normal to get wrapped up in thought, to lose your presence and not realize it. That's why it's so important to know what it feels like and what it feels like to reset yourself, because this is something we're navigating all day, every day. And, when we get wrapped up in what we're doing, it's very easy to forget.
mm,
So this is a really useful understanding, not because you understand it and then you're done, because it helps us navigate something that's really tricky, which is that we're living the experience of our state of mind, and it's easy to forget and get locked in.
mm. It also occurs to me that what this conversation is also about is just simply looking at how presence works, how our minds work. Because you said the key thing is most of the myths we talked about today are innocent attempts to reverse engineer the benefits. And I can see how when you just try and like, well, how do I reverse engineer? How, if I wag the dog's tail, it should be happy. I see the innocence of wanting the results, but also the how I might get mixed results because I'm trying to reverse engineer it not without understanding how it works and how a simple look at how things work, that's where it's at to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, and I love what you're saying. I think that's right, and it's nice as well because I'm primarily a student of this, Nikon, and when it's something you're trying to execute, it can be very frustrating. But when it's something you're curious about, it's fascinating.
I'd love for you to share more about that distinction. There's something in there about curious versus execution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're trying to execute it, it's going to be very frustrating because I don't think any of us has the understanding to be perfect navigators of our mind. I just don't. Well, look,
Yeah.
I know I'm not.
Yeah.
But if it's something you're curious about, everything that happens is fascinating and helpful, right? So let's
Mm,
say I go to a meeting and I really want to be present. And to my distress, I don't get as present as I want to. And the meeting's kind of a 6 out of 10.
mm,
And Leela says to me, "How was the meeting?" I was like, "Yeah, it was fine." Well, if I'm a student, it's going to be really interesting to take a peek at what was going on in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, how come I didn't get more present? I'll see, I got insecure because I made it so important or whatever. But whatever it is that happened, I'll learn from it and it will be fascinating and it will put me in better stead for next time.
I've I've recently taken up badminton because I've aged out of taekwondo. Like my knees, like we can't kick people anymore, Nikon. But I've been doing that for 20 plus years. But I've used less on my upper body, so we can badminton, right?
Yeah.
And then I love being a student again. Like I lose all my matches, right? But I just love like, oh, I wonder, oh, and then I could just see myself getting better because I'm just so curious about it. And I love the feeling of being curious. I don't take anything personally because I'm not trying to be a professional. I'm not trying to win medals. I'm just so curious about it. And now that you've mentioned it, you're right. I notice my learning curve. I enjoy the learning curve infinitely more when I'm a lot more curious than rather when I'm trying to get things done. And for people listening, I would add be really curious about presence and see where that takes you.
Yeah. And one of the things that people can do is, I think if they get curious, Nikon, they'll notice everybody has times where they're really present, but because it comes so naturally, they don't really notice it or respect it.
What what make what why do you think we don't respect it? What's
Well,
that
because
about?
we don't really see that it's present. So usually
Uh
everybody has something that they really love in their life. And usually it's a thing they do. They put their thinking aside, and as a result, they're more present. And as a result, they enjoy it and love it. But they don't realize that they're doing that. They think, oh, I love yoga. And someone says, oh, well, for me, it's flower arranging. And someone else is, well, for me, it's going to the movies. And it's none of those
yeah.
things people do when they put their thinking aside. And if you start to, oh, you already have a place or places in your life where you're more present, but you don't realize it because it's happening by default. So you don't really credit it. You usually blame it on the thing you're enjoying because you're less distracted.
It what occurs to me is Newton and the apple, where
That's
he was
right.
not the first person to observe an apple falling from a tree or like gravity, right?
Yeah.
And then he it occurs to me he had an insight and he got really curious as to why it does that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
that because of our understanding of gravity, we can now fly planes, or it had something to do with it. We can build things because of our understanding, because of curiosity. And what's coming to me now is having a lot more respect for the way our minds naturally work and being really curious about it,
Yeah.
rather than trying to reverse engineer or like trying to make the the dog's tail wag. Yeah, brilliant. I feel like that was it. That I feel like we've come to a natural conclusion. And so, lastly, I would like for you to share with us about just one thought and what that's about. How can we find out more about it? What's on offer, and what do you have coming up? Things like and such things. I think people would be really interested to know.
Thank you, Nikon. So one thought is mostly about bringing this understanding into the mainstream, mostly through working with businesses. We do also have a couple ways that I help develop people that want to do this work, but mostly we work with businesses, and you can see more about that on onethought.com. For members of the public, we do have an online course, which you can find in the resources area of our website. It's a video course. And there is a kind of virtual course that's a mixture of webinars with Leela and I and our videos, which is called the Foundations of Wellbeing course. And you can sign up to that. We run that 2-3 times a year. And if you want to find out, what we're doing. Oh, and the online course you can find at onethoughtonline.com. And if you want to find out more about what we're doing case we do anything new, you can always get on our mailing list.
Brilliant. And for me to, I just want to vouch for Dr. Aaron Turner and his work. He is one of my favorite teachers in this understanding. And every time I get to interact with you, Aaron, I see more deeply and I'm a lot more curious. And there's that saying, right? There are a lot of teachers out there who you talk to them and you think they're really great and they're really smart. And there are few teachers out there who you talk to them and you feel smarter and you feel like you know more. And you're definitely one of those teachers where I feel smarter as a result. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure, Nick. It was lovely to hear. Thank you for having me.
And we'll be back with more myth busting in the future. Thank you, Aaron.